So here's how we make the terminals for the battery using our 3/8-inch copper tubing and wire. And this is what, 1/4-inch wire?
I believe it's a 2-gauge wire.
2-gauge wire.
And so we strip off the insulation like that. And I think we have to actually slice it down because the insulation adheres to the copper pretty strongly. Hopefully I can do this without slicing my finger. There we go. All right, and so this wire, this will insert directly into the 3/8-inch copper tubing. And it's a tight fit, so we have to get all of these wires together very closely to make it go in there. And so that's not going to be very clean, but I'll just show you for demonstration purposes. So this goes in here, and then we basically take a hammer.
You want to go all the way through. You want it all the way to the end, so when you drill
it. Well, I'd like it to go all the way through, but the reason I stopped it here is what I'd like to do is take a flaring tool and go on one end of this, and this is what I'm using as a flaring tool because it's a conical taper and it fits in here just about right. And you take, well, preferably a hammer, but I can use this for right now. And then we flare the end out. Have to be able to get it off there too. This our flaring tool works for that as well. So now what we have, as you can see, is flared it out.
That worked quite well.
And so now it'll make it to where we can insert the copper in there a little bit better without fraying of the members. So we can insert it in there, rotate a little bit, and then actually it flared it out enough to where it can get a little bit of the insulation, the wire insulation in there.
Yeah.
And see, now it sticks out the other end. And so now when we pound this out, we pound this part flat with a hammer, and then
just put in a vise.
And then
don't you want to put in a vise?
Vise doesn't give quite enough pressure. The hammer, it needs a good impact because it'll actually make the copper wires and like fuse with the copper tubing here, and so that makes it give much better electrical contact. And then once we have that done, then we drill it out to 1/4 inch or 5/16, something like that. We drill a hole that'll be the proper size for the battery or the solenoid or whatever we're connecting to.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other thing is that sometimes we'll have a wire and we need to have a secondary wire go in here as well. And so I would take this back and I would flare this out. And when I go to flare it, I would take something like this and I would put another piece of maybe a drill bit or some little piece of rod in there on the side and then hit it again to flare it out. And that would give me enough room so I could put an additional wire in the side there.
Do you need that? That looks like they both go in together.
Right.
No, but you didn't do that step you just mentioned, so you probably just you can probably do it just with this flare. No?
Yeah, I probably could. This one, that flared it out.
That's a nice flare. Well, let's assume we're going to be able to put this in as well and bang it down together.
Right. And of course, before we put that in there, though, we're going to want to get the insulation stripped off. Yeah. And we'll probably take off about 1.25 inches, something like that, and then pull back on this, and then insert this in here to go with the rest of the wire. Give it a little bit of a twist. It rotates on there, and then now we're ready to make sure that we see. This is where the additional side of the flare would work out because the insulation now, trying to get it over the insulation is a little tough at this point. And so I just take a hammer and flatten out about the 3/4 inch of this, and that make it good and flat, and then we drill a hole in there.
And if it falls off, you can solder it on. If the small wire breaks off.
Well, it's better if you get it in there and get it underneath, because then the insulation will give it some strain relief. And then I'll come back and I'll take some heat shrink tubing and put some heat shrink tubing over this end of it.
Yes.
And so that'll give it additional strain relief. So we prevent, because this thing is very easy for this, especially if the insulation is pulled back some and we bend the wire, it'll very easily break off.
By all means, yeah.
And so we want to prevent that.